Simo Häyhä. He is the most lethal sniper in recorded history, and he accomplished everything that earned him that title in approximately 100 days, using a rifle with no scope. When the Soviet Union invaded Finland in November 1939, Simo Häyhä was a 34-year-old farmer who had spent his entire life hunting in the forests of Karelia and had developed a relationship with that landscape that no military training could have replicated. He moved into position before dawn each day, packed snow into his mouth to suppress the vapor of his breath in temperatures reaching minus 40 degrees Celsius, and waited, sometimes for hours. With a patience that came from years of hunting animals far more alert than the soldiers he was now targeting, he refused a telescopic sight deliberately, preferring iron sights that required him to raise his head less and present a smaller profile to counter-snipers who were specifically deployed to find and eliminate him. Soviet commanders eventually sent dedicated sniper units and called in artillery strikes on his suspected positions. None of it worked. On March 6, 1940, an explosive bullet struck him in the jaw, taking away a portion of his face. He regained consciousness on the day Finland signed its peace treaty with the Soviet Union. His confirmed kill count is estimated between 500 and 700, precise number debated by historians, but the scale of it undisputed. He returned to his farm after the war and lived there quietly until 2002, dying at the age of 96. When asked how he had become so accurate, he said he had practiced. Vasily Zaitsev. Vasily Zaitsev grew up hunting in the Ural Mountains with his grandfather, learning to track and shoot in conditions that would later serve him in an environment no hunter had ever been trained for, the ruins of Stalingrad. He arrived at the battle in September 1942 as a naval infantryman, and within weeks had become the most celebrated sniper in the Soviet military, his kill count and story amplified by Soviet propaganda that understood the psychological value of a folk hero during one of the war's darkest chapters. Between November 1942 and January 1943, Zaitsev recorded 225 confirmed kills in the rubble of a city where survival itself was an achievement. The German High Command reportedly dispatched their chief sniper school instructor, Major Erwin König, to find and eliminate him, a duel that Zaitsev described in his memoirs as lasting several days across the ruins before he identified König's position beneath a sheet of metal and killed him. Historians have debated whether König existed as described, but the duel became one of the most told stories of the Eastern Front regardless. Zaitsev was wounded by a landmine in January 1943 and lost his sight temporarily. Moscow's finest eye surgeon restored it. He survived the war, lived until 1991, and was buried at the Mamayev Kurgan Memorial Complex in Volgograd, the site of the battle that made him famous. Carlos Hathcock. Carlos Hathcock is the sniper whose name American military snipers measure themselves against, and the stories attached to his service in Vietnam have passed into legend in ways that make it easy to forget they are documented facts. Hathcock served 2 tours in Vietnam and accumulated 93 confirmed kills, a number that understates his actual effectiveness because the confirmation process in Vietnam required a witness, and Hathcock frequently operated alone and deep in enemy territory where witnesses were not available. His most celebrated single operation involved crawling through elephant grass for 3 days and nights to reach a position close enough to shoot a North Vietnamese army general, moving inches at a time, never sleeping, maintaining complete silence across 72 hours of movement to cover a distance of approximately 2,000 yards. He completed the shot and extracted it successfully. On a separate occasion, he shot an enemy sniper through the scope of the opposing rifle. The bullet traveling through the scope itself, a shot whose probability calculations defy easy description. Hathcock was also known for wearing a white feather in his bush hat, which the North Vietnamese placed a bounty on, making him a target for their own snipers throughout his time in the field. He returned home, developed multiple sclerosis in later life, and died in 1999. The sniper school at Quantico is named after him, Chris Kyle. Chris Kyle served 4 tours in Iraq with SEAL Team 3 and is credited with 160 confirmed kills, the most in American military history, a number that made him simultaneously the most celebrated and most controversial American sniper of the modern era. He operated primarily in Fallujah and Ramadi during some of the most intense urban combat of the Iraq War, providing overwatch for Marines and soldiers moving through streets where every doorway and rooftop represented a potential threat. His confirmed kills included shots at ranges exceeding 1,800 meters in conditions of urban complexity that made the technical achievement of each one significant independent of the numbers. His memoir, published in 2012, became one of the best-selling military books in American history and generated a level of public attention that transformed him into a cultural figure well beyond the military community. The film adaptation, directed by Clint Eastwood, became the highest-grossing war film in American cinema history. Kyle was killed on February 2, 2013, at a shooting range in Texas by a fellow veteran he had taken there as an act of support. He was 38 years old. The circumstances of his death and the trial that followed generated sustained national coverage. Lyudmila Pavlichenko. Lyudmila Pavlichenko was a history student at Kiev University when Germany invaded the Soviet Union in June 1941, and she was already an accomplished competitive shooter when she walked into a recruitment office and asked to be assigned to a rifle unit rather than a nursing corps. The recruiting officer reportedly suggested nursing would be more appropriate. She reportedly suggested he reconsider. She was assigned to the 25th Rifle Division and spent the following 14 months fighting through the sieges of Odessa and Sevastopol, accumulating 309 confirmed kills, the highest confirmed total of any female sniper in history. Her targets included 36 enemy snipers, a category of kill that is considered particularly significant because it requires defeating someone who is simultaneously trying to find and kill you. She was wounded 4 times before being evacuated from Sevastopol in June 1942. The Soviet government subsequently sent her on a diplomatic tour of the United States and Canada, where she became the first Soviet citizen to be received at the White House, meeting President Roosevelt, who described her as remarkable. She met Woody Guthrie, who wrote a song about her. She met Eleanor Roosevelt, with whom she maintained correspondence for years afterward. She died in 1974 at the age of 58 and remains the most decorated female military sniper in history. Rob Furlong. Rob Furlong held the record for the longest confirmed sniper kill in history for several years. A shot taken on March 2, 2002 during Operation Anaconda in the Shah-e-Kot Valley of Afghanistan that covered a distance of 2,430 meters, or approximately 1.5 miles. Furlong was a Canadian Army corporal serving with the Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry when his unit identified a group of al-Qaeda fighters moving across a ridgeline carrying a heavy machine gun. 3 shots were fired. The first 2 missed, which at that distance and in mountain conditions with significant wind variables represented a targeting process rather than a failure. The third struck the target. The achievement required calculating bullet drop, wind drift, the Coriolis effect of the Earth's rotation, and air density at high altitude simultaneously in a fire environment with the target moving. The record has since been broken, most recently by a Canadian sniper operating in Iraq in 2017 with a shot of approximately 3,540 meters. But Furlong's shot remains among the most technically demanding in documented military history and demonstrated capabilities that reshaped how military planners thought about sniper employment in mountainous terrain. Francis Pagamagabau. Francis Pagamagabau is the most decorated Indigenous soldier in Canadian military history and one of the most effective snipers of the First World War. And he's also among the least known figures on this list outside of Canada, and a mission that reflects more about how military history has been written than about the significance of what he achieved. Pagamagabau was an Anishinaabe man from the Perry Island First Nation who enlisted in the Canadian Expeditionary Force in August 1914 and served through some of the most devastating engagements of the Western Front. Ypres, the Somme, Passchendaele. He accumulated 378 confirmed kills and captured 300 prisoners, making him the most effective sniper of the entire war by documented record. He was awarded the Military Medal 3 times, one of only 39 soldiers in the entire Canadian Expeditionary Force to receive it more than twice. He survived the war, returned to Canada, became chief of his community, and spent years advocating for Indigenous rights in a country that had sent him to fight for it. He died in 1952. A statue was erected in his honor in Parry Sound, Ontario in 2016, more than 6 decades after his death. Adalbert Waldron. Adalbert Waldron holds the record for the most confirmed sniper kills in American military history with 109, a figure that stood for decades before Chris Kyle's total surpassed it, and he accomplished nearly all of them during a single tour in Vietnam between 1968 and 1969, operating along the Mekong Delta. Waldron served with the 9th Infantry Division and was known for operational capabilities that his fellow soldiers described in terms that bordered on disbelief, shooting targets from moving riverboats in low light conditions at ranges that most snipers would not attempt from a stable firing position. His most documented single feat involved identifying and shooting an enemy sniper who was firing from a coconut tree at a range of approximately 900 meters, while Waldron himself was aboard a moving boat on the river below, a shot combining target detection, range estimation, moving platform compensation, and trigger execution simultaneously. He received the Distinguished Service Cross for his service. He died in 1995. Relatively unknown outside military sniper circles, his record eventually surpassed, but his technical achievements in the specific conditions of the Mekong Delta remaining in a category that no subsequent documentation has fully matched. If you made it this far, drop a comment below and let us know which sniper you want us to cover next. Subscribe so you never miss an upload. There's a lot more where this came from.